Good morning, and welcome to the second part of AIA Florida's repositioning discussion. Today will be question and answer, general discussion, pretty much an open forum as a follow-up to last week. As a part of this, everyone has been muted as soon as they dial in, since we do have a number of people on the line. So if you have not entered your audio pin, please do so at this point. You should see it on the side little go-to-meeting panel. And you must enter that PIN so we can unmute you. If you don't have that PIN entered, I'll try and track you down and email that to you real quickly so you have that. And you do need that so we can unmute you when you do have a question. When you have a question, there's a little raise your hand icon. Just click on that to raise your hand. It should be red when it's not raised. The arrow will turn to green, and then we will call on you and unmute your line so then you can ask a question. We will try to answer all questions and comments in the order that we receive. So you will be called on, we'll unmute you, and then be ready to go ask your question. Now, if you don't want to raise your hand, or you'd rather just type in your question, there is the question pane on the side, and feel free to type in whatever question or comment you might have there, and we will try to get those in the same order too. And that's about it. So I will turn this over to Kim, and we will be ready to go.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for calling in today to participate in our discussion. Hopefully everyone looked at the questions that and the answers that you received last week from Becky. And first, I'd like to go ahead and thank a couple of chapters that have already scheduled their town hall meetings and gone ahead and shared that information with AIA Florida. Treasure Coast and AIA Tampa Bay have their town halls scheduled. And we are excited. The state, AIA Florida, is happy to extend the invitation to AIA Florida's XCOM to attend any of those town hall meetings if you so choose. So if you've got something scheduled, please be sure to let AIA Florida know, and we're happy to have some folks attend. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and open it up to questions and hopefully some responses and some good discussion. This is your chance to go ahead and ask questions regarding the repositioning, give your comments, give feedback, ask questions about the grant opportunities. Any takers?
Kim, do you want to discuss some ideas about the Innovation Fund? Maybe that will open up a discussion on any ideas that I have on the line.
Sure. There has been some discussion between a few components regarding the opportunity to, as a region, act and respond to the grant application in a more cohesive way, as a method to perhaps work a little better between the local and state chapters. A few of those ideas tossed around, bear with me while I pull them up, have included the development of a web template that could be easily utilized by the state and then shared with local components so that the region has a clear and identifiable online presence. The second one was the development of a communication template, e-newsletters and social media that can be shared, again providing a more cohesive communication tool, but it also has the potential to reduce much of the legwork for unstaffed components, and it eliminates the need for chapters to reinvent the wheel many times over. There was discussion of the expansion of the state app and the social media presence, again, specifically as a method to further engage emerging professionals, students, along with the general public. And then there's been discussion about the development of a possible leadership institute. That has been discussed briefly in AIA Florida's Professional Development Committee, but it was also identified by a few component leaders recently as something that would engage emerging professionals and may help address some of the passive reactiveness that's been identified as one of the 10 key points that needs to be addressed in repositioning. Any hands? Any typed in questions?
We do have a question from Jed Heath. He asked if we can get a copy of the priority posters for our town hall meeting. and we can certainly send that to you in an emailable form.
I guess following this call, we should probably go ahead and resend out the email from National that had a few of those key links. In addition to that, Becky, could you pull up the repositioning page on the AIA Florida or AIA National site?
Sure.
This page has links to a lot of that information. So the links to the grant information along with those posters for the conversation guides are located here. Actually, they're right at the top. You can see them. Download the guide, and then the poster size or letter size 10 recommendations is available. This particular page is a really good tool as you move forward and start to plan your town hall meeting or your community conversations. Any other questions, comments, suggestions? For those of you who didn't see the questions last that were sent out, oh, Becky, do we have a question?
I think we do. Yeah.
Okay.
It's, I think, still coming in. I'm going to unmute Greg Burke. I think he may have a question.
Excellent.
Yeah, it sounds like we're unmuted right now. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a hand on the tab on the side to raise it. Kim, I think we need, there's a lot of apple pie, I think, in the repositioning in general. The Leadership Institute seems to me to be the thing that needs to be expressed the most. I mean, reducing the board size and all those types, those are internal issues. Things that we should be looking at are repositioning the Institute and architects in general so that we quit losing ground to contractors and interior designers and whoever else may be, wanting to take a peck at us. We've missed the opportunity to be out in front of sustainability to a certain extent. USGBC usurped us on that. We kind of missed that. We kind of turned things over to construction managers in the 60s. I think if we want to get this stuff back, that Leadership Institute's got to be the primary vehicle for moving architects and architecture back into the forefront of the construction industry. I'd like to see us try to find a way to make that the priority. I think we could probably say the same thing about our own board, that we may have too many people in there in that meeting, and what we actually do could probably be improved too. But I think we've got to start looking into the future somehow and try to find things that are going to move us forward. That's primarily, it's not so much a question as it is a comment.
I greatly appreciate that comment. Greg, do you have any models, any other organizations or any other, I guess, cities, municipalities, things, people that may have already developed a Leadership Institute? Because when we say that, that's a fairly broad notion, and in terms of developing that further, especially as we move forward at the state and local levels, what does that Leadership Institute look like to you?
Well, I think that, yeah, I can make a comment. The Indian River Chamber of Commerce, Indian River County Chamber of Commerce, actually has a Leadership Institute that they conduct every, I don't know if it's once a year or twice a year, where they basically take people through a training course on what it takes to get through Indian River County. That's kind of, I'm not sure that's a Leadership Institute. To me, that seems to be more of, if you're kind of new to the area and you want to find out how to find your way, that's the way to do it. I don't know if there's, if you start looking at think tanks like the Brookings Institute and things like that, I think that's what we've got to do. And whether we could do that at the state level, I'm not sure. But the national level surely should be able to pull some of those minds together. I think we've got, Andy Hayes came up with a great recommendation for our citizen architect task force, and we're working on trying to get that implemented, where we a citizen architect fellow to work with AIA Florida for a month or so before we have our legislative agenda to try to find or identify things that would be important to AIA Florida and Florida architects in, concerning legislative affairs. I think we'd have to, develop something else of that nature whereby, totally away from everything else that people can get in a room together and kick ideas around or things that have to be pushed forward. I don't know if there are any. I'm sure there's probably models somewhere, but I'm just not aware of other than what any River County Chamber does.
Wonderful. I appreciate the feedback.
Kim, we actually have a question from Andy Hayes. Andy, I'm going to unmute your line.
Great.
He did ask via text, we were extremely successful with the 100 Years, 100 Places. How do we continue with that momentum?
Andy, are you on the line?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yep, you're breaking up a little bit, but we can hear you. Your question is about the 100 Years, 100 Places and capitalizing on that momentum?
Well, an aspect of my comment is also, I think, what Greg was trying to get at in repositioning has talked about it as well. The 100 Years, 100 Places touched a chord with the general public and got over 2 million people to come to the website and vote. I think we need to have discussion about how we take that as a case study and a lesson learned, and what is another campaign that will engage the public, because that indirectly did what Greg was talking about by having the public see buildings and places as important to them and to their well-being. And I think the way we push back against the general contractors and some of the other groups that have kind of cut into our market share is a twofold thing. One is we continue to show these types of public outreach campaigns that position us as being advocates for design, and to steal a phrase from Mickey Jacob, increase our coolness factor. But also, by doing that indirectly, we gain stature for the organization, and we position ourselves to take back some of the market share that some of these other groups have got because of the change in perception and the change in value of things. I mean, not only a good example of that is the Fontainebleau and the press it got, but also their owner got involved and cut us a check because they liked what we did. So and became a sponsor. So is there any talk of anything like that, or following up on how we at AIA Florida can continue to do something along those lines and position it in conjunction with the repositioning efforts?
Let me address that in two ways. There's been some talk, and I mentioned it already, regarding the development of a stronger online presence and reaching out in terms of social media and communications and the web. Now, what exactly that content is, if it's something similar to what was done with the 100 Years program, there hasn't been any development along those lines. The other point I wanted to make is so much of the repositioning is focused on the member. Actually, I think in the grant application it goes as far to say, remember, the repositioning effort is about the members. So while I think it's incredibly critical for AIA Florida especially, and local components, to continue that public outreach, so much of this repositioning seems to be focused on sort of member interaction and increasing the coolness factor. So so the short answer is no, Andy, but it's definitely something that the task force can can take a bigger look at.
Well, I understand, and I guess really what I'm saying is to link them, but understand that the focus is on the member. And then the second comment that I had is going back to the emerging professionals conferences that were done, which became an EP track at the annual convention, and then at AIA Tampa Bay, the thing that we put together, Kim, that had a making track and what were the other two now?
It was making and leadership, and it was like leadership and advocacy was one track, and then making was another track.
Yeah, and there was a third one that was more kind of design and technically oriented. But anyway, the point with all of that is I think that all you could go back and look at the numbers, and all of those efforts had value and got some good response until the economy tanked. And it's understandable when you're at the point in your career where you're a few years out of school and you're paying on student loans and other things like that, that it's a pretty good sacrifice to have to go to a conference or to do something like that. But I wonder, in addition to some type of a leadership academy or something like Leadership Tampa or Leadership Florida. In addition to that, if part of the grant was simply to fund a dozen stipends for people, that wouldn't pay everything, because people need to do some of it. But I think as we come out of this economy, it's to help people get to these things and give them a little bit of seed money, which helps take the economic hit out of it, as I think another thing we also need to consider.
Mm-hmm. Very good points.
Kim, I'm going to unmute Brian Bradley. He had a comment on what Greg was saying about leadership in the local counties. Brian?
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to Greg's comment about the leadership program. That pretty much every county in the state of Florida, as well as the state of Florida, has a Leadership Florida or Leadership Sarasota or Leadership Indian County that might serve as a model. So.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for adding that. I'm not sure if anybody's aware of other chapters or other components or other states that have, or maybe even other professional organizations that have some sort of leadership institute that we may want to look to in the future.
Actually,
Kansas City has a real strong one.
We have had some research going on. The economy certainly put a damper on some of our leadership programming that we had been looking at for the last couple of 3 years. I did put that back on Eileen's activity list and the Professional Development Committee again this year, and I think we're going to be trying to kick something off. And at that point in the discussion, we were really talking about just the general membership, but what I'm hearing is a focus perhaps on the emerging professional as being a target audience that we probably need to be a little more focused on. I do know that the engineers, the Florida Engineering Society, has had a fairly successful leadership program. It's been driven by the firms, and the firm's commitment to, I think, a 3-year program for their employees to get involved with that. So and then, of course, there's always the chamber kind of model that's out there. And additionally, I just want to remind everybody, Mickey Jacob had some funds that were available to him. They were discretionary funds as president, and he did post a grant opportunity for anybody that was able to get a position like in, Hillsborough Leader, what's the Chamber of Commerce program, Leadership Tampa Bay.
Leadership Tampa, yeah.
That if someone was to get accepted into that they do have, he has some of his discretionary funds available to help
subsidize that. So there's a couple of different outlets that we can be looking at. A, ourselves, B, going through the chamber and with those funds that are available, and again, just kind of determining that target population we want to be looking at.
Wonderful. Thanks, Vicki.
Kim, we have a backlog of hands and comments, so we will try and take these in order. Jed, I'm going to unmute you. He has said he has some examples from the Young Architects Forum. Jed?
Yeah, when I was, we had our national meeting last month in Kansas City, and one of the things that was presented was some of the programs that the YAFs are doing in different areas like Chicago and Seattle and Portland and stuff. And I'm trying to look through my records right now to find the actual presentation, but there's a really good model that I think would lend itself to what you guys are talking about as far as the leadership. It's very much kind of the architect spin of what Leadership Sarasota, and I'm sure the other municipalities do too. But I'll try and find it, and I'll send it up to Becky so she can distribute it for everyone to see.
Great. Thanks, Jed. And congratulations on your YAF position.
Thanks.
Kim, I'm unmuting Miguel Del Rio. He had his hand raised. Miguel?
Hello. Can you hear
Hi,
me?
Miguel.
Hi, everyone.
We can hear you.
Hi. I just wanted to make a point regarding the emerging professionals and leadership. I know that Esteli has been trying to put together an associate sort of leadership summit where all associate directors from each of the chapters of the Florida Caribbean would meet, and there has been some discussion and support from staff to make that happen, and I believe tentatively it might occur in October. So that's one thing that it could be the first of building up future leaders for the region. On another note, and going, I guess, to Andy's comments on the discussion, as we were discussing repositioning in last week's call on the Diversity Council, one thing that also seems to be, if you look at the 10 priorities, is that definitely they are all member-oriented. However, if you look at Robert Ivy's article in Architect in October, I was very pleased to see that he highlights the efforts of AIA Florida and the 100 years efforts as a positive thing. So I definitely think while it's still member-oriented, we as a region should take on that momentum and build upon that effort that can serve as a model for other states or components.
Wonderful. Thanks, Miguel.
Thank you.
Okay, Kim, Greg Burke has his hand raised. Greg?
Yeah, thanks. I found the hand on my thing finally. The whole thing with leadership and emphasizing the member, I think that's all, again, to me that seems to be kind of apple pie. If we want to focus on new membership, I think that the leadership effort has got to get out in front. You know, the criticism that we get from non-members is, what does AIA do for me? Okay. I think we have to express some of those things. I think the whole fairness and liability legislation, you know, our members know about it now, but what about non-AIA members? How much of that do they know that we pushed through and we got forward? I think this is part of what I'm getting at. I think taking care of the member is all well and good, and it needs to be done, but without the leadership side of it, it kind of falls apart. Getting that message out to make sure that non-AIA members know that it happened and why it happened, I think is supremely important, and those are the types of things that will help, I think, attract new members if that's a big part of what our repositioning is. I think that also starts to show the leadership that architects can take when you know, when we're asked to do that, is to get out in front of an issue and get it resolved in a manner that is fair to all, in my mind.
Greg, I couldn't agree with you more. I feel like everybody on this call today understands what AIA Florida especially does in terms of advocacy, but unfortunately those non-members don't know, and perhaps we're not always sort of the best ambassadors for what the organization is actually doing. And yes, we can and probably should be doing a much better job, and that all gets tied back to leadership efforts and sharing that information.
And I think the ambassador is probably the exact right term, Kim. You know, it's all well and good for us to, you know, to let all our members know what we're doing, but you know, the guys outside of AIA don't know what we're doing and don't know why we're important. You know, it's kind of funny when CCNA comes up, I actually will hear from an occasional architect saying, hey, are you guys out in front of this? Well, yeah, we are. And you know, they want to know, you know, how we're trying to protect it for them. Well, I think we need to get that stuff out. I mean, if there's a way to call all those architects that are out there, they're not AIA members, and put them on a mailing list, I think that's a fairly easy thing to do, so that they get this stuff. Now, if they unsubscribe to it, well, you know, I think you're probably as far as you can go, but I think it's got to take on a different view than just Friday Facts.
Right.
It's got to be news alerts, just like we send out when we're asking people to contact our state representatives when we have a legal issue coming in front of us.
Right. Couldn't agree more.
Okay, Kim, next I'm going to unmute Raul Ocampo. He has his hand raised and has typed in a few comments. Raul, I'll let you speak to your comments.
Yes, but before I do that, I'd like to say that I agree with what Greg was saying, but we need to follow up. I mean, to just have the ambassador is probably good for PR, but I think that as AIA Florida, we would need some sort of either a clearinghouse or a think tank or an action spot, something that as we get these ambassadors out there and people begin to see that we have an interest in being citizen architects, if you will, that they have a vehicle to go to and say, hey, you know, help us out. These small municipalities and counties need help in a variety of different areas, and I think the emerging professionals can certainly be a very big part of that, because that way they can learn the ropes as to how to get into the government sector. And the other thing is you can provide some of the services, and I'm not an advocate for giving free services, but I do think that we need to lead, and one way for us to lead is to show that we can provide a certain amount of thought processes that these different municipalities and counties can use. For example, something as simple as offering some time to be on selection committees. I mean, how important can that be to architects and to emerging professionals when a lot of times we go before selection committees and there isn't an architect there and it's an architectural services contract. So I think all of this blends together very well, but we need to have that backup resource within the AIA that if you get a call, you can match them up with someone else within that area or close by that can actually provide a service that is valuable to them.
Wonderful. Definitely agree. Thank you.
Kim, Nadi has a question. I'm just waiting for her to dial in with her pin so I can unmute her. So until then, I think we are caught up on everybody else. Unless you have a comment or would like to raise your hand. Oh, Nadi's ready. Here we go. Nadi?
Hi, I figured it out. The only comment I wanted to make, because that is a comment that a lot of people have made regarding communications and getting out the information to people that aren't members, and even members, because a lot of members don't even read the Friday Facts, I think we need to start a program similar to what we did for the Florida 100, where every time we get a big win or we're working on a big win, we issue statewide press releases to basically, you know, let everybody know and try to get into the publications. And I think the publications that are business-oriented will likely include the advocacy items, but not just the advocacy items, but anything that's going on that would be relevant to the general public of programs that are going on throughout the state. And I know a lot of the components have things that are very relevant to the general public, and as citizen architects, we need to get that press release stuff going year-round, so that we're out there, and the non-members can notice and go to functions and then join in.
Wonderful. Thanks, Nadi. Nadi, since you have a lot of experience leading, I believe, the communications committee in the past for AIA Florida, in addition to press releases, do you have any other insight in terms of maybe an updated Friday fax or any other communication tools that the task force should be looking at as we move forward, or at least briefly recommending?
Yes, one of the things that we've been working on in the committee is expanding the social media, which a lot of a lot of older members and such don't really use that, but a lot of the younger members do. And what we want to do is have that social media blast through whatever the either Facebook and or Twitter or Instagram. Those type of news flashes that can be very quickly electronically put out. It'll reach a wider audience, especially younger members and the older members that are also into that thing. So that's one of the things we've been working on, and we definitely think all of these repositioning ideas and messages should also be put out in that. One of the things in the repositioning is to look at the most effective ways of communication without bombarding, because people are concerned about all the information and then they just start ignoring everything. And if we know, if we can diversify that delivery, the people that want to see email and want to see the Friday fax will do that, and the people that want to take advantage of the Twitter and the other feeds and not participate in the email can do that. So it gives them choices, and without having to pay attention to all of it, because some things will happen on one media and not in the other. So that's my thoughts on that.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for sharing all that information. It's all good information applicable to repositioning, so we appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Kim, we don't have anyone in queue, so if anybody has a question, raise your hand or type it in and we'll get to you. Question, comment? Oh, we got the mic. Raul, can we unmute you?
Yes, on the leadership, I think one of the things that we need to do is, rather than try to reinvent some of these wheels, is really take advantage of the ones that are already there. You know, the chamber really does a great job of communicating with its members. And in their newsletter, they actually usually have all of their accolades for all of the new members, all of the people that have come in, what they're doing, you know, any awards that have been given. Anything that is noteworthy is just blasted out there immediately, and that's something that we need to learn from and take advantage of. The other thing is leadership as an organization, which was founded by the chambers, is something that we should participate in rather than, you know, try to come up with something that can perhaps compete with it. I participated in Leadership Martin County, and I can tell you that that has been an invaluable experience for me, not only because of the information that I got from it, but all of the networking connections that I got through it. And the people that I went through leadership with are the same people that I deal with day in and day out in the community. And there's no better way for an architect and the AIA to come to the forefront of the community than to participate in something like this, where you have all of the big wigs and the stakeholders in the community, you know, captive for, I don't remember what it is, it's like 8 or 9 months, and it's a once-a-month meeting. Perhaps that's where we can take some of that money that that Mickey Jacobs was talking about as a grant. It's not cheap at the county level, and it's even more expensive at the state level, but it's something that I think would be a very worthwhile investment for the AIA to elicit members that would want to participate. Now, you don't necessarily get chosen just because you apply, but obviously if other members have gone through the process, we can help in terms of getting you in.
That's excellent, really great point. We need to all be taking advantage of the programs that are available in our own backyards, and so often we either forget about those or don't think we have time, but they are incredibly valuable programs depending on where you are in the state.
Well, I think if we sponsor our emerging professionals, it's going to be something that is really going to help the organization as a whole in the immediate future, especially now. You know, unfortunately, we do have the time, most of us at this time, to participate and become involved, and that's what we should be doing.
Excellent point. Any other, Becky, do we have any questions, comments?
There's nobody else, so if you have a question, now's the time to raise your hand or type it in. No questions, Kim.
Well, is anybody on the line? Let me ask this question because I have a question or two. Is anybody on the line? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you. Andy Hayes' hand just came up, so.
Okay.
Andy?
Kim, could you talk about the process going forward from here for your group, the task force, to call all these comments and put together whatever deliverable you're going to do? What is the process going forward for your group?
The process moving forward, and unfortunately Dan isn't on the line, but the process going forward is as you've read probably in several emails from AIA Florida, we're asking everybody to host these town hall meetings, ideally before the first week in June, so the feedback from those meetings can be sent both to AIA Florida and to AIA National as National has requested. From there, there's a 1-month time frame before grant applications are due in July to National, and so hopefully there may be an opportunity to work cohesively as a region on a few of these ideas that target one or more of the 10 points. From there, our task force will be analyzing everything. There's a matrix. There's actually several matrices that Dan Kirby, our AIA Florida president, has shared that will help in sort of outlining what the state component does right now and what can be done better. So what we'll be doing is taking a lot of that repositioning feedback and plugging into these matrices what's working and what isn't and what needs to be looked at, and then what the task force recommendation is from there. That's the timeline. The intent, obviously, is not to talk about this indefinitely, but to reach a clear final conclusion by the end of this year, if not sooner. Does that help?
Yes, thanks, Kim.
Anybody else?
No. Not right now, unless somebody else.
Okay, I will say that.
Kim, sorry. As soon as you start talking, somebody raises their hand. I'm going to unmute Nadi again. She has her hand raised. Nadi?
Excellent.
Hi. To follow up a little bit on Andy's call, because we had a membership meeting last night, and we did collect some paperwork from the people that attended, and I think we're going to follow up with some other stuff. Should we just, who does that get sent to Vicki or
to Lisa O'Donnell is the point of contact at AIA Florida.
All right.
And we will get out a follow-up email, I think, to participants, both with Lisa's contact information along with the link to the grant information and the additional community conversation guides.
All right, awesome, thanks.
And Kim, I'm going to unmute Andy again. His hand is up.
Okay.
Andy?
I just forwarded a couple of things. AIA Kansas City and AIA Dallas both have really good case study programs for the a leadership track or a leadership forum at the local component level. The one at AIA Kansas City is actually, we took some cues from that, Kim, when we got the AIA national grant back, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago now.
Right.
But that program continues to go on, and one of our consultants that we work with, actually the business development director, is an architect who went through that program, and now she is doing business development for a multi-office MEP firm. And what was interesting, and I think there's a lesson to be learned for us here, is the networking and the values that this particular individual got out of that AIA Kansas City leadership program were valuable to some of our allied industry partners, and wound up, because of the connections made there, they felt that that was a valuable hire. So I think those are good case studies. But one of the things that I would point out is we have an issue with resources, and maybe this is a case where we can work in a collaborative way with some of the components immediately adjacent to us, that maybe we can do some things that where we would share resources, share meetings, and get groups of folks there, because if you look at the well-run programs like Dallas and Kansas City, there's a lot to them, and a good bit of overhead and planning and resources that go into it. So I just wanted to forward that for everybody, if you've got the time and if you're interested in the AI leadership stuff, to look at those two programs.
Wonderful. Thanks, Andy. I couldn't remember the Dallas one, but I remembered the Kansas City quite well from a few years ago. So appreciate you sharing that important information.
Kim, I'm going to unmute Miguel Del Rio. He had a question he typed in.
Excellent.
Miguel, are you still there? Okay, never mind. He has signed off.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Awesome. I just had one quick question before I sign off. And was the survey, besides the posters that are to be printed out for the town hall meeting, that basically those same priorities are in a survey format where you get to choose the 3 most important ones to you? Has that survey been sent out to the Florida and Caribbean members?
No, actually what was done was every component was asked to host a community conversation. So no, it hasn't been sent out separately as a survey. We're actually asking components to get that feedback and share that feedback both with the state level and the national level.
Okay. I mean, because I think it might be worthwhile for us, not everybody can attend, the physical meetings, to at some point try to get that feedback to see where our regions, collectively 3 most important priorities are, even if it's through the components. So, I need to sign off, but please, before the Denver meeting, anything that I can do as the regional director, me or Steve, and bring report back to the board, let us know.
Wonderful. Thanks, Miguel. And that's a really good point about possibly surveying our membership outside of the local.
Do you have the survey, or if not, I can forward it to you. I got it through another group. That's why I wasn't sure if it had been through Florida, or I got it several times.
If you could forward it, that would be great. It's not something I'm familiar with, but maybe I'm sure Vicki or Becky are.
Okay. I'll forward it to the 3 of you. All right.
Great. Thank you.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Miguel. Kim, I'm going to mute David Ways. David just typed in a comment. David? David, can you hear us?
I'm sorry, can you hear me now? I had my
Yes.
phone muted. I was wondering if we could, in some legal way, without liability, and a way of generating revenue by making our digital plans and details or BIM models or objects available to other members instead of having to recreate the same thing. Like if you get a project and you're going to do a remodel, if an architect, a member, has those plans, and instead of redrawing those plans in CAD that are already in CAD, that saves a lot of time to the client and to ourselves. If there's a way that I could pay that architect for his plans and then just build on them, correct them, and check them and go forward with them as my own, if there's a way that we could make that resource available so that other non-members would say, hey, wait a minute, I'd like to participate in that as well because it's saving me time and I'm getting money back even on one project by being able to get drawings that are already developed. Now that we're not drawing it on a drawing board anymore, once it's drawn, we shouldn't have to redraw it. There should be a way that we can share that information or get paid for it and put it up on the internet to where you don't even have to answer the phone to get it, but just go to the site and get the information and download it and pay the guy. You know, it's not in this flat file anymore. I'm just trying to develop a resource for members and encourage non-members to participate because there's a benefit to be a member.
That's an interesting thought and possible member benefit. I'm not sure legally, I don't have the legal expertise to even begin to comprehend what that means and if folks would actually be willing, members would actually be willing to participate and share information like that. I know in the past, a lot of architects just work, just negotiate directly through the last person to have the drawings, or the municipality may have the drawings. But I'm not, to be quite honest, I'm not sure where to even begin with that kind of potential member benefit and the legalities involved there.
I just know that, for instance, I have a remodel or an addition, you go to the county and you get the plans on PDF and then you redraw them. But if there was a collaboration among members and say, look, you can get the drawings, I have those drawings, I have the latest as-built, don't go re-as-built this thing, I just did it a few months ago, and pay me for it. And so there's a way that we can generate new revenue streams by making that digital information available instead of recreating it, and it looks identical once you recreate it. I just was wondering if there's a way that we could do something like that.
Right. No, it's a really good notion and idea. I'm not sure where to go with that, but I've added it to our notes, so it's something that the task force can go ahead and discuss and take a look at.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kim, Andy has his hand raised. Andy? Andy, you there?
I am here. I'm sorry, I just stepped away to the little boys' room. What did I miss?
Well, you raised your hand.
I did?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I must have double-clicked that. I was trying to put it down. I apologize.
Okay. Well, it's up again.
It's showing a down arrow on mine. That's what's weird.
Is it green or red? Green.
It's red.
Okay. I'm lowering your hand now. Okay. Anyone else?
All right. If we don't have anybody else, I'd like to go ahead and thank everybody for calling in today, and we'll go ahead and, with 10 minutes left, we'll wrap up this call a little early. Again, appreciate everybody. If you have questions, please feel free to contact Lisa O'Donnell at AIA Florida. She's our staff contact and disseminates all the information to REP Task Force, the Repositioning and Emerging Professionals Task Force. So if there are any further questions, if you sit down this afternoon and think of 3 more things that you wanted to discuss or have answered, please feel free to contact Lisa or myself, and we'll go ahead and do the best we can to get those questions answered. Again, appreciate everybody's time, and hopefully it was beneficial for all. So with that.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you to everybody on the task force.
Thank you, and have a good day, everyone.
Thanks.